Hi, thanks, Ange. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today as we discuss the lessons learned from Managed SD WAN deployment. We have a lot of great information, so let's just get started. We'll be taking questions through the chat, and after the presentation, we'll also have a live Q&A session. Let me introduce you to our speakers. We have Ramesh Prabhakaran from Viptela. Ramesh is Vice President of Product Management and Partnerships. We also have Brian Promise, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing from SEV1. And lastly, from Verizon, we have Scott Allen, who is the Director of Managed and Professional Services. So again, everyone, welcome. And Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining today. I still see a number of people spooling up, so I expect that we'll probably crescendo a few minutes into this. We're taking a follow-up from our last, doing a quarterly series around software-defined networking as, sort of an educational case study perspective. And, this time really focusing on retail and finance. Perhaps an odd pairing, but I think for those people in the business, the similarities being around the multiple locations, so, branch small office locations being and stores obviously being kind of the similarity footprint, and then also the heavy amount of transaction activity kind of combines or is a common ground between retail and finance against a redundant data center model. So a lot of similarities as it relates to how customers are deploying software-defined wide area networks. And then again, it's really important to me that we continue to develop the relationship and the partnership out in the field with Viptela. So Ramesh joining me again, thank you for that. And like we said, we've got Brian Promise from SEV1. Now this is a new, exciting, I guess, formal partnership. We've actually been doing work for almost a year now in terms of the operational and the visualization, troubleshooting, and performance management with SEV1. Huge partner, large portion of our go-forward business around software-defined wide area networking. So I'm happy to have Brian come in and present a couple of slides on the perspective and capabilities there. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. We'll switch the video around. This is our standard proprietary statement around the content that's being viewed today. So I'll leave this with you all and get right into the heart of the matter. Today, the customers that I speak to on a regular basis are rapidly looking at the before picture and realizing it doesn't scale to today's networking and end user demand model. Customers today, obviously, you all know, are facing, down here, the smartphone, the tablet, laptop, mobile users against a wireless LAN infrastructure that's becoming much more complicated here in the middle section, and then traversing a number of public and private network connections, sometimes rogue connections, sometimes corporate connections, ultimately terminating on the top of the now slide into public, private, co-location centers, any myriad of those. So the importance of policy-driven application routing and the policy-driven wide area networking is becoming increasingly important if you look at the demands that go on here. I'll share with you a quick anecdote related to a customer I spoke to a couple months back who talked about hosting a financial call for all of their shareholders. That's the word I was looking for, shareholder call. Probably a couple months back, and his issue was that while he was on an analyst call, somebody started using a lot of bandwidth down in the administration portion of the building, and it really caused a hiccup right in the middle of the analyst call. If you can imagine, right, you've got all your shareholders and prospective proxy voters on one call, and all of a sudden your network starts hiccuping, and it was 15 seconds of sheer terror for this guy as he was recalling the story. Policy-driven networks prevent that, right? They prevent the unpredictable. They prevent that which you can see, that which you can control, and that which you want to direct within your network. As it relates to that 80-20 rule, it's the 20% of those applications that are really critical and drive 80% of your business. those are applications that you absolutely need to have a policy wrapped around. And Sub 1 gives you the visualization and the capability of seeing how that performance goes, and we'll share a little bit about that. I've used this slide in a number of areas, and my favorite is really going kind of horizontally across the top. From an expanded service perspective, I can't not go to a meeting today and not hear about Office 365 and the deployment. It used to be really for smaller companies, but we just had a customer advisory board, and this, some of our top manufacturing customers at a customer advisory board just a couple of weeks back, and the gentleman across the table from me saying, I've deployed 15,000 Office 365 users. So, it's not the medium business, small business user that's deploying Office 365 anymore. It's corporate, it's mainstream. It's certainly IM&P, instant message and presence, but it's expanding rapidly into, how do I deploy voice peer-to-peer video like you saw on the other slide. So a big portion of the new expanded services, and actually Ramesh is going to talk about that because they got real sharp about this early and said, hey, we probably should start doing some messaging and marketing to help people understand very directly how does Office 365 get impacted by a software-defined wide area network. So I think in a slide or two, we're going to get straight into that and let you see how that works from a Sub 1 and a Viptela perspective. Obviously, we're using WebEx today, a business critical function for me. Being an office worker, a knowledge worker, I'm on WebEx probably for anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a day, remote, mobile, or even in the office. So a critical policy that Verizon uses in terms of making sure that we deliver those video and collaboration applications reliably and with a high priority because they are critical to our business. As we look at the enhanced digital experience, especially as it relates to retailers and the financial, I see a lot more, video, digital display, digital signage in the stores, globally, right? No matter where I'm shopping, where I'm visiting, you're starting to see those display ads. They're dynamic, they're not static, they're not scrolling, they're not just updated nightly anymore. They're getting midday pushes on sales specials, and trends. Guest Wi-Fi and BYOD, I think BYOD has been around for about 5 years, but I think it's really, again, hitting an apex of congestion on the network. I look at the number of devices sitting here on my desk, and I've got, my smartphone, my mobile, my smartphone, my tablet, my laptop. Any of those could be connecting to the wireless LAN at any given time and competing with, a number of contractors we might have in the next room. So having those policies set up is critical from a digital experience perspective. And one of the very first use cases that Verizon ever had, and we've covered off at ONUG last spring, was around the business unit acquisition or divestiture, being able to write policies and segregate business units as they're being spun off or acquired with easy policy and LAN segmentation, and the security that comes with a software-defined wide area networking deployment is a critical use case that we find over and over. I saw something on the order of, I think, 33,000 M&As go on every year globally, but I had no concept that 33,000 mergers and acquisitions were going on globally. So, if I look at every industry, every business, certainly retail and finance, acquiring localized or smaller segments of their competition, this is something that I think is going on every day, whether or not it's a portion of your business. And then we talk about network modernization. You've probably been getting a lot of conversations or a lot of questions around how people are doing digital and digital transformation. We've got a lot of customers who are looking at how do I mix a hybrid environment during an end of life or during a CP refresh cycle. Does it make sense, or when does it make sense to engage Verizon and Viptela in talking about what should be at the edge, and how do I get those services to work in a commingled hybrid environment? So we've got a lot of experience around that today that we're engaging customers and helping solve that problem, like when, where, how, what policies, what locations, how to bring it in a non-disruptive and accretive value to the overall long-term strategy. So that's why, why and where we see customers caring about SD-WAN. Well, let's get into the Office 365 because you launched a recent social media campaign on this on LinkedIn, Ramesh. You all have been doing your own webinars. I was on your website last night, poking around. Talk to me a little bit about how prominent and how much of this you're seeing and how you're solving for it, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So O365 is one of those interesting SaaS applications that's single-handedly driving the need for a new age wide area network, right? And at the outset, initially when customers came to us and said, hey, O365 is killing my WAN, I was really scratching my head to understand what is it that's really killing it, right? And that's when we started to dissect O365 into the various applications. You have Exchange, you have Skype for Business, you have a whole bunch of other things, each with its own set of requirements, each with its own set of latency, loss, and network-specific requirements as well. And then we try to distill it down to what's really killing the wide area. It's really simple. If you have workers, employees, or whatnot at the end of a remote site or a branch or a store, and they need to access O365, and you're using really skinny pipes or low SLA pipes to access the service, and your internet exit point, and this is critical, the internet exit point is not placed correctly, then you will see the spinning wheel of death. And invariably, when you do a trial with 10 sites and 10 employees, let's say, you don't hear this as a problem. The minute you start to scale to a few hundred and thousand, and certainly going back to your numbers, Scott, on 15,000 and so forth, then the numbers start to add up pretty quickly, and it becomes a CIO's #1 problem. And when email stops working or experience is bad, everybody complains. And so it's single-handedly driving quite a bit of the discussion around wide area. Now, let's look at this particular picture and see what is it that we need to do in the wide area in order to address this. Now, I spoke about the need to have a proper internet exit point. Today, everybody has internet exit points. They're out of their data center or DMZs, and that's how it has been. If you're browsing cat videos on YouTube, for example, it's less important if your user experience goes for a toss. But if you're accessing O365, Salesforce.com, and so forth, then it does start to impact it pretty aggressively. So customers have said, hey, what is my natural recourse here? Maybe I open up traffic out to the internet locally at the branch location itself. Essentially, get an internet pipe, connect it to the branch, and open it up to the internet, do what the industry has traditionally done with split tunnel. Now, for those of you that have had security-conscious conversations, it's quite apparent that's not the easiest of answers, because now I've just gone from opening up 2 sites across my entire network to the internet to a few hundred, if not a few thousand sites. And so security guys immediately come in the way and say, hey, no, this cannot be done. I need to put a lot of controls around it and so forth. So customers are grappling with, I have the need for a direct internet access because Microsoft says I need to access O365 directly over the internet, but I need to strategically place the internet exit points and make sure that's secure, make sure there's no inbound DDoS, and so on and so forth. So that's really where we see SD-WAN, along with the partners such as Verizon, come together and say, hey, I can offer you the full experience here. I give you the ability to choose the applications that need the right level of performance, and so you can exit out to the internet, either locally at the branch if my security allows me to. I can have a regional colo or a POP of sorts and then exit out, or maybe out of my DMZ, depending on how far these things are. So in terms of options, you see the numbers 1, 2, and 3. You have multiple options here, and the trade-offs here really are between experience, security, performance, and learning curve. And that's where we have really honed in on with our customers to understand why this is important. In the direct internet access case, that's the one we spoke about. Get a pipe, connect it to the site, and then exit out to the internet. It gives you the best performance, but certainly not the best in terms of security controls and so forth. And at the same time, you have the unreliable internet to deal with, especially if you're too far away from a tier 1 provider of sorts. Now, in order to address this problem, you can actually go to a carrier-neutral facility and then exit out to the internet using an internet exchange. That makes sure that the last-mile internet is just one AS hop away, and you have essentially the SD WAN telemetry that's provided by the network to jump from the branch to the intermediate point. Or you can go down the path of actually using an express route, which is what Microsoft recommends for a small sliver of their customers, where you can actually jump onto either a CNF or an SCI type connection and then exit directly into O365. All the way from the branch going into O365, everything is secure. So this is actually an entire topic of conversation by itself. We should probably do an entire webinar on this, but it's single-handedly driving a lot of the wide area transformational discussions.
Yeah, do you find that it's both people who are just using the exchange function as well as people who are trying to do voice and video, or is it only for people trying to do voice and video that this is an issue? I mean, to me, and I'm really embarrassed to say this, right, but like exchange is it's a pretty big important business function for me, right? Like if I don't have email for the day, there will be problems. If you can't see, somebody like yourself on video, the world doesn't stop. But man, if email goes down, well, we got real business problems. So is it a mix? Is it like mostly people just doing instant message presence and exchange? What do you see as far as the business application out of O365 currently?
Absolutely. So the exchange is number one, mainly because of the prevalence, as you mentioned. If I don't access my email for a few minutes during a working day, I get very jittery, right? And I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience feel the same as well. So proper functioning email is absolutely critical, not just for personal sanity, but to run the business as well. So that I would place at the very, very top. Now, the second one is SharePoint, especially as you start to talk about file sharing and the need to link files to emails and efficient transfer of emails and files and so forth, right? So once again, that's another one. With respect to the other two, especially voice video calls and also instant messaging, that absolutely is important. Instant messaging in particular is not as bad when it comes to loss and latency in the network, because I mean you do get the packet eventually, maybe a second out, but it's not as annoying as a spinning wheel that runs for like a few seconds, right? Sure. And so in terms of priority, I would say it's Exchange followed by SharePoint, followed by voice and video, and then IM after that as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I hadn't factored in SharePoint, and I think you've got in here the other methods. Verizon does have a secure cloud interconnect offer, which we do wrap security around so that customers can connect directly via MPLS if desired into the Office 365 environment without having to buy more or different access or bandwidth or have to even deal with the internet version. But there are a lot of different architectures and a lot of different considerations, as you pointed out. So thanks for that. So I'm going to do one slide, and then we're going to give it right back to Ramesh. So get ready, Ramesh. We got, I think, a few case studies. You're going to walk us through both retail and financial as it relates to the challenge statement and then how we delivered. So from our perspective, Viptela brings to this relationship a lot of the innovation, a lot of the technology, a lot of the policy understandings around how their clients are interested in moving applications. Obviously, these are our clients as well. Really, like I said, the strength being around the technology, the intellectual property, and that monocular focus that Viptela has on software-defined wide area networking makes them a great partner. And, it's not a small company, right? You guys are dealing with Fortune 500. I think you were named like one of the, top companies to watch to hit $1 billion. Did I get that right, Ramesh? Yeah, that's right.
That's actually a blessing and a curse. The unicorn producer,
So, step one, we're going to talk a little bit about. I think they're kind of the unsung heroes, right? You don't see them as much within our infrastructure because they're built into the performance and the troubleshooting delivery. So which is why we asked for them to come out and kind of speak forward and talk a little bit about that. So Brian's going to hit that. And then from Verizon's perspective, we have great relationships with our customers. We have a a global backbone and a wide array of services, so we don't just have to go in, with one point technology. Customers aren't looking just for, a policy or a box or an edge device or a report, right? They're looking for somebody to bring this together and bring it together with the access options that we offer. And like I'd mentioned before, the software, the secure cloud interconnection to those applications like Microsoft, or also goes to some of the others like Google Apps and things like that. We've got a whole other discussion line around the secure cloud interconnect. All right, before I get too deep into that, let's go straight back to Ramesh, talk a little bit about the digital transformation from a retail bank experience perspective. So you could start talking, and I'll move the ball over to you here.
I know, absolutely, yeah. And if there was a textbook example of why somebody needs SD-WAN, especially as a managed service, this would be it, right? And to just give some context leading up to how we won this customer together, it was really this particular retailer has a pretty large footprint, as you say, as you said, 750 plus stores. They had a few problematic sites where really their business was getting impacted pretty badly. People were not coming into work because they were over skinny pipes. The experience was pretty bad. The sales was pretty bad, and so forth. And so when we embarked on this initial conversation with the customer, it was really a test and a challenge back to us. Make it work in these problematic sites, and then let's start to talk about how this transformation can work. And so very quickly we spun things up. I think it was less than a week, and the whole thing was up and running, and the customer was blown away. And very simply, what is the transformation that we went through? It was just not stick to a single skinny pipe, a T1 essentially at all of the stores, but rather augment that with a couple of things. One is a pretty large broadband pipe. In the customer's case, it was a mix of 20 meg and 50 meg, in some cases actually 100 meg internet pipes as well, and then also augment that with 4G LTE. So right off the bat, the customer got transport diversity. So it was a combination of MPLS and broadband and 4G LTE. Now, on top of that, the customer was embarking on things like retail analytics and Office 365 and a whole bunch of other high bandwidth video applications, even things like digital signage. They said they had vendors knock on their door every single day to provide profiled digital signage videos, whereby you walk by a screen profiles you in a nice way, and then put a picture of what is it that you would be interested in seeing there as well. And so increasingly, retailers are extremely digitizing their network. Going back to what Scott was mentioning, it's about digitizing the infrastructure. It's about adding the transport diversity. It's about applications as well. One of the examples that this particular customer gave us was, hey, I was 9, hit the exchange, and as you all know, within 2 days, everybody downloads the new application onto their phones and starts upgrading. So they said that was pretty much choking their network and killing the store network. So very simply, they put policy that said match on traffic bound to Apple, especially iTunes upgrades, and then throttle that down to a meg. So it's a classic example of how you get application visibility. You get application-based controls as well that you can put back into the network. Now certainly, going back to the 80-20 rule, this particular customer cared about a few applications. Certainly point of sale, if all else fails, that's okay. Point of sale cannot, because that's where they make the money. So point of sale was absolutely the highest priority. Next up was some of the analytics pieces, and then some of the streaming music, streaming video type applications, and then certainly all of the laser guns and everything that takes care of inventory and so forth. So they actually had a pretty interesting stack rank list of applications that needed prioritization through the network. And what kind of latency loss guarantees do they need through the infrastructure as well. So it was provided, the network architecture was built based on these things in mind, essentially transport diversity, all of the retail things that you see on the right side of the picture around signage and guest Wi-Fi and kiosks and so forth, access to the cloud, and then the whole thing was bundled into a managed service that's then offered back to the customer. The rollout actually is kind of where we got pretty excited. Certainly we were excited about winning the opportunity, but we saw this customer go from 2 stores a night using the traditional technology to roughly about 25 to 40 stores a night in terms of rollout using this new technology. So it was very simply send a box to the remote location, ask somebody to rack stack the device, connect the blue cable to one of the ports, the red cable to a different port, and power it on. And that's about it. And everything was just up and running. They go through their full testing, and the store was alive. So it was really a combination of the architecture, the ease of operations that really led to this transformation. And on an ongoing basis, the customer continues to see quite a bit of value. They've added actually a whole bunch of new high bandwidth applications as well to this infrastructure, mainly because they have 50 meg, 100 meg pipes going into each one of these locations, and they're not paying nearly as enough as what they did even earlier. And so the transformation was pretty great from that standpoint. And they also got the transport diversity, so that if there's a conduit going to a particular store and that gets cut, guess what happens? All the connections that you have going in go for a toss. And that's where LTE kind of kicks in, a circuit of last resort, and says, hey, my 2 primaries or my primary and secondary are down, and so I need to bring this LTE connection up, and I need to have the store alive. So the customer went from nearly about 97% availability to about 3-4 nines of availability in the infrastructure. So that was a pretty great transformation. Again, a textbook example of the near-term value that SD-WAN can provide. You make the infrastructure ready for innovation to accommodate all of the things that you want to do, and at the same time make it cloud ready as well.
And in your whole narrative, I mean, with Viptela, you have story after story after story like this. I mean, this is not, I mean, we're picking one slice, but, you know, you go to your website, you hear, you know, the different marketing discussions around Viptela's case studies and use. I mean, this story keeps happening over and over, right? It's about the agility, it's about the flexibility, and it's made a huge impact, I think, for a number of customers who also are pretty outspoken about you know, the partnership. So
absolutely, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's a great model, right? I mean, you have the guts provided by the technology to enable the transformation, but that alone does not complete the story. You need to have the infrastructure in place to support it, and at the same time you need to have the operational model on top of it to serve, and that's really where the killer combination is. And switching gears from retail to financial services.
I was just going to say, as you do that, like we picked this because this is a smaller example, right? Like I don't want everybody to think you have to have 750 or 500 locations to do a transformation and do 40 a night just to make an impact with software-defined wide area networking, right? I mean. Yeah,
absolutely. This actually is even though it's a much smaller network, and some of you might be wondering, okay, what does SD-WAN have to do here? It is, once again, the use case is really interesting. This is a publicly trading financial services organization, and as you can imagine, really small in terms of number of sites and actually in terms of number of people as well, but they are in every possible continent and have all of the major cities in the world covered, right? So you can list down the top 10 cities that come to your mind in terms of relevance, and they would have a presence there. And the challenge that they had was very simple, right? They inherently completely distributed geographically, and so they couldn't just afford to connect all of their infrastructure using just one provider, and so inherently they were looking for a combination of providers there to connect their infrastructure together. And they said, hey, I need financial organizations. Certainly it's not just about trading. There are a whole bunch of other high bandwidth things that were flowing through the network, and they said, you know what, I need to look at an alternative model. They said, I need one person to kind of manage my entire infrastructure. infrastructure. And then underneath the covers, you can have multiple circuit providers. And so that's really what makes this use case interesting, because you've fundamentally changed the paradigm of connectivity that used to be whoever owns my circuit also owns the service, to one owns the service and a bunch of other guys in underneath the covers that provide the circuit. And so again, SD-WAN decouples these two, and a managed service can be provided on top of anybody's last mile infrastructure, right? And so it need not be just a service provider provided circuit. It's great because you can then offer an SLA as well, but if that provider does not have presence in that particular country, then it's not the end of the world. You can actually use third-party, either MPLS or broadband or whatnot, and then still provide a ubiquitous managed service on top of it. So the use case is actually quite different, but at the same time, you can see the examples here, right? I mean, the customer again came and said, I have two locations, one in the Middle East and one in Europe, and actually one out in Southeast Asia. And those are my three problematic sites. Give me a solution to make these things work. And as with the retail case, we made those three work, and then lo and behold, it expanded to their entire footprint as well. So,
hey, Ramesh, I want to double click down on something you just said, because people, I don't know what on people's minds, but I have heard questions before from audiences at ONUG and other places like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, Ramesh is up here talking about somebody other than Verizon providing access to a site. Hey, we have a great network, certainly global footprint, best-in-class service from a wireless, from a MPLS and internet connectivity perspective, but we do recognize that people have other accesses and circuits into a location. When we deploy software-defined wide area networking, it is about that edge and policy experience and the availability of the service. We provide SLAs for sites that have third-party circuits at it, right? We do recognize that maybe not every location needs two MPLS circuits. Maybe you need that internet broadband. Maybe you can get 500 or maybe you can get 50 meg from your local cable provider, and that's a suitable thing for you to route some of that, non-critical traffic. So, we're in it for the big game, right? The long haul and the customer experience, and we recognize that we're not always going to be both of those access circuits or wireless providers plugging into that device. It's going to come in many forms, but we do have the responsibility from a managed service perspective on the SD-WAN to provide that singular experience commitment and SLA. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's key, right? Because the value is not just about connectivity. The value is about, can I make my applications work? Can I make it work based on the SLA requirements that I have? And that can be provided if you own the underlying circuit or if you don't own the underlying circuit as well, because the technology gives you the ability to measure in real-time loss, latency, jitter, a whole bunch of characteristics, and then make policy decisions based on that. And so you're naturally up-leveling the conversation, as you can see, from I want to own the service, I want to own cloud connectivity, I want to take care of operations and management, and certainly the circuit and the underlying infrastructure is a piece of the overall thing. And that's a transformation that we see across nearly all the verticals, right? I mean, we're talking about retail and financial services here. It's equally applicable to manufacturing. As you can imagine, manufacturing tends to be, especially the large ones, tend to be globally dispersed, and so this is a natural game that you can actually avail yourself of as well.
Great segue to my next slide. We're gonna move forward quickly because I want to get to Brian's stuff. You just talked about the global expansion, the use of third-party circuits, the need to have that uniform experience, even though it may have come, like I said, globally through another carrier, from a broadband in China, or even a broadband in the U.S. provider accessing a secondary or even a primary circuit plugging into a managed Verizon SD-WAN solution. We talked about the digital experience upgrade. I think pretty healthy coverage on the retail piece. One of the things that this anchors for me is in the mergers and acquisitions. I want to really just focus for maybe 60, 90 seconds on the data breach investigation report, I've got actually a couple posters up here I was fortunate enough to get from the marketing team. So the data breach investigation report talks about, the need to lock down your network in a way that doesn't allow people to traverse and snoop, and gives, specific access to specific user groups, and declines, prohibits others from accessing those applications unless there's roles and policies that enable it. So, while we talk about prioritization, we talk about the application accessibility, the important thing that this provides, in addition to all those performance attributes, is really a security function of being able to segment and create user group experiences that are unique. And like I said, in the data breach investigation report, and I put in here the actual page numbers for you if you want to check them out. It's over on Verizon's Insight Lab on VerizonEnterprise.com. Talks about what is the importance of asset and network segmentation, and this is about how SD-WAN delivers that for our customers. Really an important, I think, probably an undersung element of the service that more and more companies are starting to realize is a primary benefit, not even a secondary benefit. Quick talk on the roadmap. So from a roadmap perspective, we find customers certainly preceding this step in the internet space, still using internet as we talked about, but MPLS allowed people to create full mesh networks, create QoS around applications, define the path that they want to travel, either hub and spoke, mesh, etc. Software-defined networking allows you to, by policy, by application, by business unit need, select the path that you want to take in a dynamic way, right? So old is, static, primary and secondary. New is dynamic, policy, and performance-driven aware networks. And then on top of that, being able to make the path and expand the path. So for those of you who don't know, and hopefully a lot do, we have over 13,000 users entitled with Dynamic Bandwidth Manager today on our network. 13,000 different corporate entities using the Dynamic Bandwidth Manager. So this is the ability to go online, use the SD-WAN to define your policy, and then dynamically allocate increased port, increased capacity logically, in minutes, like being able to open the path and close the path on your ports for those Ethernet connected locations. Really critical in terms of being able to immediately fix a problem, or hopefully be able to predictively increase capacity for your network in preparation for something like this, like a large webcast. And finally, I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but we've really ventured into the virtualization of those applications like software-defined wide area networking, including security and WAN optimization. So a huge portion of the business as customers are trying to figure out what is the total cost of ownership here. And this is about investing in the tools, right? So real nice that we're rolling out technology, but if you can't experience it and manage it and access it and use it in the context of your business, it's kind of a little bit of a so what. So, our managed services platform, uses the integration of the SOC and the NOC, uses that dynamic bandwidth manager, right? That's the online tool. You can go in and expand your ports at the data center, enterprise locations. Certainly would have been a good idea right before that investors call I talked about earlier, to go in and expand the port, maybe double your capacity for that one day, and then size it back down the next day, so you don't get hit with a bunch of charges on bandwidth you're not using. And then from a Step 1 perspective within our network application performance management, this is where you can start to see an individual user's experience on an application rather than at a pipe level or at an application level. This is an individual user. So I'm not going to go into each one of them, but this is really the experience layer for our customers in the managed services space as they interface and want to get e-bonding feeds out of this, or API feeds, or just like I say, manage their network in a central location for all their services, be able to see security, network, advanced communication, VoIP reporting and performance all in one place. So pretty excited about that. I'm going to, like I said, skip through this. If your network isn't helping you address these challenges today, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? You will, I truly believe, in the Gartner and the IDC stuff supports this, I truly believe that, getting involved in adopting this technology is critical to a long-term success of the business and the IT operations working together. You don't want to wait until it's something that, has to be done. You want to start getting into this technology now. Build it into your budget refresh cycle. I mean, we're coming up on 2017 here at the end, or excuse me, the beginning of Q4. If now's your budget cycle, now is the time to start considering what does a proposal look like to replace my edge devices with a Viptela SD-WAN device, and how might that technology be used in a pilot or a lab here in the next couple months. Certainly for retailers after the heavy season that's coming up, but January, February, like, we need to get this stuff in a lab and start using it. So, Brian, talk you up in this discussion here. Now I'm ready to hand it over. Let me, like I said, let me introduce Brian. He's out joining us from California this morning. Huge partner. Like I said, can't do this without you, because otherwise, like I said before, it's just technology. If we can't see and manage the performance and the user experience, it's just kind of like, fun science. So talk to me about the user experience and then the SEV1 benefit, please. Yeah,
thanks, Scott. It's, if you think about SD-WAN and what's going on, in delivery of your services to the market, customers are going through this opportunity to transition from some traditional WANs into these policy-driven WANs, and being able to do that, right? You folks just don't transition overnight, right? There's a need to be able to visualize the health and status of an environment, and be able to do it in a way that taps directly into both the existing infrastructure and this new software-defined infrastructure. The new software-defined infrastructure brings agility to the business, but requires agility back on the operational tools that support it. So we've been working closely with Verizon and Viptela to make sure that we're tapped into the APIs that drive the agility of the Viptela solution and offer the SD-WAN services. But also making sure that we're tied into the rest of the infrastructure of the service delivery that that customers come to Verizon for, and making sure that the Verizon operations teams have the visibility to help make that transition possible. But it goes beyond just that visibility. It goes into to understanding how the SD-WAN infrastructure is operating, right? When how well is the system operating, and if there's issues, to be able to know that which things we need to go pay attention to. So really, that helps to validate those policies and be able to understand the user experience in real time. But if you think about the work that an SD-WAN does, right? It's doing it in a manner to meet certain business goals, and be able to do that, you need to understand what you want to do in the future. So planning for future policies, you can use the underlying infrastructure of the data we collect in SEV1 from the entire infrastructure to help plan those policies out. And finally, I think the last piece that really begins to tie it together is, we've talked really about the SD-WAN, but the SD-WAN is there to enable connectivity across an entire infrastructure. Right, Ramesh, you were talking about the retail experience, right? So whether it's the person with the gun doing the inventory analysis or a point of sale machine, those are accessing application services across that WAN into the corporate data center, and you need to have and what SEV1 delivers the Verizon operations team is the ability to understand that entire path, from the retail branch back to the data center. Let's go ahead to the next slide, Scott. And we'll,
you got some juicy screenshots. I know the guys in operations. The guys in operations love this tool. I mean, the last two times I've even seen anything about SEV 1, I mean, our internal teams have started taking over and doing all the demos. I don't even think we're using the SEV 1 engineers to do it. They're so like involved with this at this point. So walk me through. I've never heard you actually give this.
Yeah, to give an idea, about some of the visualizations we have is, we're really there to help the Verizon operations team be able to deliver the service they need to. And when you're doing that, you need various levels of depth of information. If you're monitoring at a customer level with 15, 20, hundreds of branches, you can build out scenarios of what we call live maps, the ability to have a high level, near world level view of the health of the entire infrastructure, and the ability then to drill down based upon exception level reporting of how things are operating. Whether you need to dive back down into what's happening on the WAN, or dive down into a data center and understanding what's happening inside an organization. It's about the ability to enable the transition, so I can visualize both my existing WAN infrastructure and the new SD-WAN, because in the end, together are providing the service for the environment. But then getting down into levels of understanding, what users are accessing what applications at what times. Make sure that, do I need to make adjustments to the policies that I've set up? Maybe sampling applications are being used more than others, and it's this level of ability for SEV 1 to gather the data and help our customers visualize it that becomes real important. And I think as we move forward in this partnership, the ability for the Verizon operations team to be able to deliver these services requires the ability to work even closer on back-end operation capabilities, make sure we're tied in directly with service provisioning and activation, into alarm and trouble ticketing types of components, but also delivering the right amount of data that you can make available to your customers through the Verizon Enterprise Center, and having the level of reports that come available for the customer. So in the end, we're really pleased to be able to be working with both Verizon and Viptela on enabling this level of visualization and helping your customers achieve the business agility goals that they have.
Well, thanks for that, Brian. Like I said, this was the missing link, right? We didn't have this. I mean, we were working on it, and the operations team had it, but as far as like the go-to-market, we didn't have this. Certainly, in the last time we did a webinar to be able to talk at this maturity stage, and there's some exciting stuff coming out, I think, in the press about our partnership and the go-to-market strategy. So I feel as though this is something that you've got policy, you've got performance, you've got innovation and technology coming from Viptela, you've got Verizon's managed service and professional service teams delivering it, and now you've got SEV 1 empowering my operations organization and the customers with a visualization of the network and how the topology and the performance of each element fitting in. There's really no element left out of the equation at this point. So I'm exceptionally happy that we're able to partner with you all, bring it to our customers, and really not only just demystify the whole experience for them, but really start to make it look like a very mature operational experience for retailers, financial services, and as Ramesh mentioned, certainly any industry. My closing slide. This is it, folks. Then we'll go straight to questions. My closing slide is really like, where do you start the relationship? Certainly, we want you to talk to your Verizon team, the account teams that serve each and every one of you today. We have a quick start promotion that allows you to get in, put the technology at a location today. Basically the full managed implementation, getting the Viptela gear out at a crazy discount price for any customers, so that it's such a low to no burden to entry that for people who know they want to start with software-defined wide area networking, we're ready. So that's exciting. That's kind of the lower half of this this guy without a face. It's kind of creepy. And then on the top track, like if you don't know where you want to you don't know where you want to start or how software-defined wide area networking fits into your environment, we have the digital advisory services. So these are the people you see in the middle square down here at the bottom. Awareness and strategy workshop. Let our team come in. Let us talk about how you want to map the applications. Let us talk about how you might fit this into your environment, how you might want to stage it, Q1, Q4, next year, whatever it is. And then, for people who really want to go run the stack, like I mentioned before, our innovation program takes virtualization for software-defined wide area networking and adds some more traditional security and WAN optimization software into it as well. So trying to make it as easy as possible, trying to make it as little friction as possible for our sales organization and for their customers so that people can have this experience and start to let their end users have this enhanced experience on the applications and the things that we focused on today. So with that, I want to hand it back over to Ange, see if we can solicit some feedback from the audience for the next couple of minutes, and as well as turn to my partner in crime, Joe B, over here as far as what's on the chat window. So, Ange, you still out there?
Yes, we will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, please press star, followed by the number 1, and record your name after the prompt. To cancel your question, you may press star, followed by the number 2. One moment for the first question.
All right, so Marish was asking us over here on the side while we're spooling up those questions, specifically around the global availability. So, Verizon's offering the global managed service, and certainly anywhere we have the ability, well over 100 countries, the ability to ship the Viptela solution as a managed solution to our customers. Like I said, both over Verizon or third-party access circuits, broadband or dedicated otherwise. Certainly there are countries where we'll face, great question, security restrictions around DES limitations, governments, entities who are not willing. We're going to follow the regulations and rules. One of the benefits I feel, in working with the Verizon is when Verizon says we can service a country, it's a homologated service. It's been through export compliance. It's going to arrive. It's going to be configured. You're not going to get, fined or penalized or shut down. This is a service that we're able to provide globally for our customers. There is a list of countries we serve out on our intranet, and certainly the Verizon account teams can go out and provide that. What I'll do actually, Joe, is I'll even put out a LinkedIn post maybe as a follow-up to the exact information so that we can get that out to the team, how many locations and where they would find that. So, okay. Good question. Ange, do we have anything out there?
Yes, we have Manish
world?
on queue. Sorry. Manish, your line is now open.
Thank you for taking the question. I think so. I was the one who posted that question regarding the country offering and footprint. Thanks for that information.
Yeah.
It would be really helpful if you can send the link so we can just look it up online. The reason why I'm asking this is that we have the customer sends us the list of countries and their locations, and they want to phase this in a phased manner. So they want to see where it is available right away so we can deploy it on the phased manner. So that was the reason to ask if you have the country list.
Sure.
And the second follow-up question I had asked was that the demo that we saw on the couple of slides back regarding the reporting and what they would see and feel when they deploy SD-WAN. Is that demo available for our customer to feel and, log in and see how the reporting will be and what they can do from their end and not as a managed service provider? So I understand that if we are providing as a service with Verizon, then the whole orchestra is done by Verizon. But if they want to log in and have a user experience, do they have any kind of a portal access?
So what we've shown, the visualizations are all around managed service, right? SD-WAN as a technology is something that you can, as a customer, you can put together yourself. We sell, resell, maintain, install, even professionally service, implement, and walk away. Viptela's solutions as a technology, happy to do so. The way what we've been representing it here is as a managed service. You know, I showed you that that kind of that bus above the there. Whoops, almost too fast with the fingers this morning. As a managed service, so you know, in conjunction with our network operations service and a nominal fee monthly at a location level to manage the service, we are providing these network application performance management. To answer your question about demo, absolutely. I'm excited to offer the demo around the network application performance management service. They can see, end user experience, end user expected experience, where the issue is coming. We're providing this to some of our largest customers and our mid-sized customers today, so that they can see that end-to-end user. I can't stress it enough, right? It's not like the LAN or the WAN interface port. It's the user experience that we're delivering through NAPM. So that is available, again, as a managed service in our Verizon Enterprise Center, as you heard Brian Promise say. That's where it's delivered for our managed service customers. But customers can piece this stuff together on their own if they want as well.
Right, but the whole issue is that they came to Verizon. It's an existing Verizon customer, and we are just providing them with MPLS, and they want to move ahead with SD-WAN. So they wanted to see how we would orchestrate as a managed services. That's one piece. But they being the customer and they being very network savvy, they wanted to see that if they can get a portal access. I already told them that if we are managing, we are going to lock up the network so that there is no finger pointing who messes up the network, whoever logs in. So, but they wanted to see how we can have a demo or something. So I'll definitely take it offline. And
yeah, follow up with me. I mean, we're also doing a lot of stuff around API pushes off platforms so that customers can have that hybrid environment. So thank you for that. Ange, any other questions out there?
We show no further questions on queue at this time.
All right, Kate, I think we're going to close on time today because our audience is hungry. You want to close us out here?
Yep.
Yeah, everyone, thank you for joining, and you can disconnect.
Thanks a bunch, folks. See you next quarter.